I'll let you take the reins here, Nikki.
Thanks, Kimberly. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicci Berry. Thank you all for joining us live here with Kimberly and Lindsay. Today, our topics are going to be our developing your why around homeschooling and the importance of deschooling. So I asked a question at the end of last week, and it was what, like, when you take a step back and you start looking at homeschooling, what is the most important thing that you want your children to leave with? Kimberly has this question structured a little bit differently, but for us, as my husband and I worked through this, as many of you know, my daughter went to 1 year of kindergarten, and it didn't go very well. I shared a little bit of that on the last video, but we worked through, and what we really saw when she was in kindergarten was her love for learning just got destroyed. And she stopped reading. She stopped just progressing forward during that year. And as my husband and I were just writing things down and trying to figure out our why and trying to, figure out what was important to us as a family, the main thing that stuck out for us was developing a love for learning with our girls. Our society has changed so much over the years, and we have everything that we could ever imagine at our fingertips. We carry it around in our back pocket. So for us, the main thing was to, teach her how to find information and guide her in that way. But the main, and this is where the deschooling comes in. I'm trying to keep them separate, but it's kind of really hard for me. But when you start having bad days, which everyone has bad days, we're not here to sugarcoat anything. Homeschooling is hard. And when you start having bad days, really being rooted into your why, and me really, like, if she's not focusing or doing something that we had planned, being rooted in that why. Okay, am I developing a love for learning right now with my daughter? Nope. Okay, we're moving on. We're moving into something different. We're just moving on to develop that love for learning, right? Giving her the space and giving myself the space as well to not get frustrated. So when you're really rooted in that why, then it makes your homeschooling life a whole lot easier. And with your children. So I'll go into a little bit more later about also developing like a family mantra and a family mission statement. Can you guys still hear me? It says my internet's unstable.
You're
I'm
in and
behind.
out. It's freezing a little bit.
So Kimberly, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and share about your why?
Okay. And so you're in Denver and I'm in Austin, and we've been having internet problems today. So can everyone hear me? Am I coming through? Okay. Okay, good. In fact, I was talking to Jenna earlier when my husband shut down the internet. I was like, oh gosh. So what's in that collective right now? That's quite interesting. Well, interesting, because your big question was, am I developing, when you're in relationship with your kids, am I developing a level of learning right now? And yes, ours is a little bit different. When we decided we were going to homeschool, and that was sort of our decision from the beginning, my big guiding question was, when our kids leave home, and let's pretend that's 18, um, what is that container that I want to have held for them for those 18 years? What do I want them to know by 18? But more importantly, what's the relationship that I have wanted to hold in those 18 years? And then so when things come up, the friction or the chaos or the disconnect and something we're learning and we're doing, that's my guiding question is this the relationship connection that I want right now? And that's, I kind of came from uh, I don't know if broken home is the right situation, but a lot of chaos as a child. And I went back and forth between my different parents' house every other day. Sometimes some of those homes weren't the safest of environments. And so that's my grounding piece. And that's something that's important for me because of how I was raised. And so as I look at my family structure, when I look at how we are in my marriage and our kids' relationships and their relationships, that's our overall container. And since we consider school and education part of just family life, it's always, how is our energy? How is our relationship? How is our connecting? More so than different curriculums. So how do we want to get this learning, and how best are we going to fit that? So when I looked at public schools or private schools, I couldn't have the relationship foundation I wanted when they were gone as much of the day. And then coming home and having the school systems homework or the school systems projects. And so to have the family dynamic we wanted, this was the right choice for us. So when I feel lost in my chaos about, am I doing all the right things? Am I providing the right situations? When I go back to my why, that's where I can make my decisions from.
Awesome. And so I love that ours are totally different, and yet we still are, the main purpose is we're getting to the same place, right? We're finding a stable environment in our home that's separate from education, really and truly. And so that we can best home educate our children. And all of you ladies are going to find a completely different why, but I really encourage you to sit down maybe with yourself first and then with your husband and really flush through this. And I would also encourage you not to have in your why, well, we're doing this because we don't like what's going on in the public school, right? Not a negative thing, right? Or I'm doing this because I have to, right? Try and Kimberly can speak a little bit more to this being a coach. But really, instead, if you're in that position, which I understand a lot of people are in that position, and they may feel like their hands are tied and they have to do this because they're not going to choose to put their kids back in school, I really encourage you to dig deep and find a why as to why you want to have your kids home.
That does inform your why, though. Like, I don't want them there for this, or that's not the right situation for now, right? That would inform your why, right? But often, if those are the only reasons you're doing it, it might not be, those roots might not be deep enough to carry you through your days that you're tired, the days that you don't feel well, the days that you're frustrated, the days that your kids are like, and you're somewhere different, you know? So you've got to, and that's what she was saying, encourage you to go deeper with that, because it is true. Like, I don't want my kids in that system, right? So that does inform my why, and there's more. And if that's your only reason, I know that's not, I know there's deeper stuff in there, right? There's always deeper stuff in there. And then but to really name that field, that really fertile ground. So that way in those, those moments that you can call upon that, and also to engage your kids and to design that with your kids so that you can remind them and say, you know, we're choosing to do this because these are my values in this. This is mine, and you might, you know, whoever your co-parent is, if you have a co-parent. I know there's a lot of single parents too. And then this is what we've designed as a family. And then so if you are in those days that you get that kickback from them, you can re-engage them and say, you know what, this is what we talked about, and these were our things that we developed together. Yeah.
Awesome. So now I want to shift a little bit into deschooling. And so our story with deschooling, I heard about it, and we had finished our kindergarten year because our families, it's important. Our values, one of our highest values is we finish what we start. And so my husband was like, no, we're finishing kindergarten. We started it, and we finished it even though we were really struggling in December. And so we finished. So we had that summer, and I thought, oh, I had heard deschooling and I had read a couple things on it, and I was like, oh, well, we had the summer. We're good. And then we just started into our curriculum in the fall. And it took me, honestly, ladies, about 2 or 3 years into homeschooling to go, oh my gosh, no, like, and researching and looking into deschooling more, going, I missed this. Very important for both Kaylee and I. Deschooling is, I posted an awesome article in our group that you guys can look at, but basically all of us, the majority of us were brought up in the public school system. So that being said, most likely the chatter in the back of your mind and what you're projecting onto your kids has something to do with the public school system and what you experienced as a child. Now, if you want to recreate the public school system at your house, first of all, I would, that's not, you're going to need to explore that a little bit more. You recreating the public school system at your house is not, how do I want to say this, Kimberly? It's not it's not possible. It's not possible. You can't recreate the public school system at your house. So that is something that you really need to look at. You can, if you are planning on putting your kids back into the public school system, then great. There are things that you can be up to date on their curriculum and all of that stuff, and that is completely fine. But I would encourage you to work through the fact that you're not going to be able to recreate the public school system at your home. And that goes back to more into digging to your why. So going back to deschooling, you really, it's a time for you to just engage with your children in a different way. If your child is still operating in a school mindset, then you're not actually able to see how they truly learn, because most likely your child has been, I don't want to say forced, but has been encouraged or pushed in a learning situation in the public school system to learn the best way to in a classroom setting, right? And so when you bring them home and they're engaging with you and their brothers and their siblings, if they have them, they are going to, if you do the deschooling properly, they are going to be able to show you how they learn in their natural way. So when you leave them home for a period of time, you're going to be able to start to approach things in a new way and take on new information. And that's where that love for learning really is going to come in, because they're going to be able to focus on the things that they want to focus on. And when they're able to learn in the way that is most natural to them, they are going to eat it up. And you're not going to have those as many struggles. There are so a lot of people when they're struggling in homeschooling, it's because they haven't gone through this process of deschooling, and they're projecting onto their kids what they had learned, and their kids are also functioning from a school mindset, if that makes sense.
So what I think I hear you saying is that oftentimes if kids have been in a public system for any amount of time, you have they're coming from a very systemic sort of way of what education is going to look like. And when they come home through the deschooling process of sort of letting that sit aside, the organic, natural tendencies to desired learning start to pop and start to show up. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like maybe you've said, this is what learning looks like, because that's what the school's put in place and that's maybe the best thing there, but maybe that's not your child's natural gifts for learning. And then you have this sort of process of shedding that layer so that they can go, you know what, I like this, or I really do have an interest, or maybe I learn best this way or that way. And then you say, great, now let's cater that way. Let's look at that. Let's look at education from these standpoints. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Right. And then I think we have those as parents too. My kids haven't done a deschooling process like that because they weren't ever in the public school system, but I was, right? And so then I have my ideas of like what education was all growing up. And then I get choices along the way of going, oh, wait, am I thinking this because that's what I was taught it was supposed to look like? Or is that really what I want to be doing? Or is that really what's best for my kid or what they're asking for, right? Or if we have our parents, so the grandparents or aunts and uncles and well-meaning friends put in your head like, well, this is what it's supposed to do. And are they doing what all the other seven-year-olds are doing? Or, you know, are they reading it at 3? It's like, well, you know, we're doing, you know, something that looks different and feels different and is right for that kid, right? And because everyone has their own independent way of, like some kids crawl earlier and walk earlier and talk earlier, right? We're going to do the same with their education. We're going to meet our children where they are and push them and excel them based on their own needs, right?
Yes, awesome.
So we have to deschool our own minds too. Jenna, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you can unmute yourself and come in and
right as she has family come in.
Is this a good time for you to chit chat? Okay. You're muted.
There we go. I know, I was trying to figure out how to unmute it. I was writing some things down and then it turned all like messy, and so I don't even know what I was writing down. So for my why, at first I was like, wait a minute, all my whys are negative, but then I was like, oh no, they're not. They're what you said, Kimberly, look, I'm motioning to the right and left because you're on my right and left in the thing. But yeah, it's not all negative. That's just kind of the meat of it. And then my perspective is more growth oriented and like the positive things. But one thing I want to say really quick, which is kind of aside from what you were saying, that really stood out to me is to point out that creativity is so important for fostering a love of learning. And when someone's telling you what you have to learn about and what you have to know, that really dulls the creativity. Like if you just go outside and you go, oh my gosh, there's a pink caterpillar, then you come inside and you look up what a pink caterpillar is, they're going to be really engaged and enjoying that. But if you just come into class and they say, okay, today we're studying caterpillars, you might not be as like into it, you know? So that's kind of like one reason why we homeschool. It started out where I just kind of didn't like the school way. I didn't want to have to get up early every day and be in a drop-off line, which is probably not the best reason to homeschool, but I'm not a morning person. And I didn't want to have to deal with homework. I didn't like homework. And I had a really not great K through 12 experience myself. So I'm not like a huge cheerleader for public schools anyways. But then when I went to grad school, I realized that my whole philosophy on education is the complete opposite from what public schools offer. Public schools are all about standardization. That's what Common Core is. It's all about having all of the students learning the same things at the same time, you know, so everybody is fair and learns all the things they need to know. And on one hand, you're like, yeah, that sounds great. We don't want anybody to be like left out on learning about caterpillars. But at the same time, it's just not the best way for humans to learn. Like that's not how it works when you study human development and your brain and things like that. And so I just got really frustrated with why public schools are even doing it this way when we have so much knowledge on these better ways to do it. And I don't know, it just gets all tied up in bureaucracy and the teachers' hands are tied and I don't know. So that's why we ended up homeschooling, because I just didn't really want to be kind of a part of the mess, I guess, which is kind of how I see it. And I know it's kind of an unpopular opinion, and I am pro public school, but I'm also like, you know better, do better too. So that's my why. And we didn't really need to de-school because my kids didn't go to school. And I think my own de-schooling came when I was realizing my differences in opinions when it comes to public schools and how they do things and how I wanted things to look for my family. And a lot of it came for me when I was in grad school, and I was like, no wonder I had such a hard time growing up, like in school. Like I was super shy and we were military and I had to move to a new school every couple of years. And every time I moved, it was a completely different culture and atmosphere. They did things completely different. This, like things I would learn, like I went to DARE 3 times. And
oh my gosh, I remember that program.
because every school does it differently. And so I would move and I'd do it again and I'd move and I'd do it again. And there's so many things I never learned about and so many things I learned about multiple times just because Connecticut does it different from South Carolina, who does it different from Florida. And that's where I lived. And I don't know. So I think just in my own schooling, I kind of de-schooled myself and never gave my kids the opportunity to need it. Yeah. What else?
And how are you feeling about your own personal de-schooling process?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very confident in our de-schooling process, hopefully not Dunning-Kruger confident because I don't want to be too confident, but I see it all the time. I see it with my daughter, like, you know, she's super ahead in math and she's super ahead in reading, but like with writing and spelling, she's a little delayed, and she's super fascinated by some subjects and could not care less about other subjects. And you can just see that if you've got a kid who's like all over the place, that's not going to match up very well when you go into an environment where it's all about standards. You know, she's going to be bored when it comes to some topics because she's already beyond it, and she's going to be confused on others because she's struggling. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I personally am like not into standards, and I think personalizing education to the kid is more effective. Because when you have gaps, like we had this like image in grad school, it's like you're building a house, and so like the you learn your letters, right? ABCs and their sounds, and that's like your foundation to reading, right? And then, or learning the letters, and then learning their sounds is the next level. And then learning the digraphs and how the sounds work together is the next level. And then putting them together for words and reading words, and then comprehension. They're all levels that build on each other. And if you have any gaps on like the differences between B and P and D, then you're going to have problems all the way up. And that's what happens sometimes, you know, with standards, is people can easily fall into those gaps if you're sick or you miss a day or you just don't get it. And then teachers don't have time to go back and fix it all. You know, you have to like hire a tutor to figure out where the problem is. And I don't know, it's not to hate on public schools, it's just to say that when you're homeschooling, you don't run into these problems nearly as much, because you're right there with your kids and you see where they're having problems, and you can work on those exact skills, because it's more 1-on-1 or 1-on-3 or however many kids you have, and not 1-on-30. And I mean, I don't think y'all have 30 kids.
Oh gosh.
I know. Y'all don't have 30 kids.
I love two things is one, as you spoken to last week and some this week, is that she's really excelling in these areas that she has personal interest and joy in. And as all of our kids are doing, they find something when we create the space and we allow the space for it. When they find something they really love, is saying, you go for it, right? Like, you want to do more, dig in deeper. And then when we see those gaps, spend time and gently work in that space and bring attention to that, which is so beautiful with individualized learning as we are as people.
And also, when you're doing it at home, it really becomes part of your lifestyle. So you're not, like, a lot of people might not necessarily be like, okay, it's Tuesday, everybody get out your whatever book or your flute, we're doing this. Like, it can be a lot more incorporated into your life. So you can practice it and you can rehearse it and go down the rabbit holes. And then also, you don't get 3 months off in the summer and breaks. You take your breaks more organically when you want and you design it. But because you're at home, you're still kind of reviewing and practicing and living with it. So part of the reason my daughter's ahead is not because she's brilliant. It's because we just don't stop, you know? Like, we take little breaks every now and then, but she started doing math when she was like 4 or 5, just because I had a new baby and she wanted to do screen time, and I didn't feel as guilty if it was like math seeds as opposed to other screen time. So she did it and she liked it and she kept doing it and she finished it. And that means she went all the way through 4th grade. But, you know, she's technically would be going into 3rd grade. So, but it's not because she's brilliant. I mean, I love her, she's great, but she's not like a mathematician. She just went through the steps. And so to reinforce it, when we switched over to a new curriculum, we went down a level. We're doing Beast Academy, but we went down to level 3, and she's loving it and it's fun. She likes it. It's a game.
Thank you for all of that. Yeah, I love hearing that.
So I just want to touch on one more thing that I will put more resources in the group on, is creating like a family mantra and or like a mission statement, and doing it with your kids. Super important. You know, writing down your values, and then also talking about I statements with your kids. You know, I am an awesome, or I love learning. I love listening. I love animals, you know, speaking positive things into them and doing that on a regular basis. I have a lot of friends, and we kind of got away from this, and doing this has made me realize that I want to get back to it. But stating our family mission statement at the beginning of our day when we wake up, as like our pledge, and it makes a total difference as to how your day goes. It gets everyone in the right frame of mind. And then saying your I am statements throughout the day. It's been really life-changing for our home education process. And I'll put more resources about that and stuff in the group. Kimberly, do you have anything you want to say about that? And then we can open it up for questions. So for questions, you guys can either raise your hand and I can call on you, or you can type questions into the chat, or you can just unmute.
Great. That's wonderful. This is what I work with people on professionally. So I have so much to say about that, but we can maybe have another call on that, or answer that in the questions, because I know we're all excited to speak into our own, have our own questions and that sort of stuff. So let's get going on that. Who's first? I see Jean's lips moving, but I don't. There.
So, I mean, are there recommended like methods for deschooling or activities, or like?
There are a lot of ideas and thoughts in the article that Nicci posted yesterday.
Okay.
And are you, we'll get you in the group if you have interest in that, or maybe Nicci can get you the article.
Sure.
Nicci, do you want to talk about that? He says in that article, and then again, you do what's appropriate for your family. But in that article, the author talks about for each year that your child has been in the public or the private system, that you take 1 month to deschool, and that you don't use, like a summer break doesn't count, because in our mind, summer is already like, oh, it's a break and we don't have to do anything. And so we're not expected. And then we've got into a system that come September, our mind automatically thinks, oh, we've got to do these things and we get back into school. So we don't use the summer as a deschool, because our mind already thinks, oh, that's break. So you start during whatever time of the school year you're starting, if it's September, and then you just go, okay, we're making conscious choices right now to do something different, and to not do that, and to just really follow your day. And maybe you still do things like you do your home routines, or you find certain play dates or activities you go to. And so it's not about doing nothing. It's not, just sitting around and watching TV, but it's really to say, I'm making a conscious choice that we're not, that we're doing something different than we've done before. So we can really shed those layers of what that system was, so we can find our own groove and our own system. I don't know if that answered your question at all, or.
One thing that I did, I wrote this out on my website just for friends and family, but I kind of break it up into different chunks. So like we kind of talked about, like on my website, I have it broken up as to like an introduction, starting off with like why you want to homeschool, like we've been talking about. And then also thinking of like breaking it up into like academic. What are your academic goals? What do you want? Are your kids trying to get into college? Are they planning on going back to public school? Are they a mathematician and you want to really foster that? Like, what are your academic goals? Well-rounded knowledge, like, whatever they are. Social, we all need socialization, and it's a weird time of COVID. So just defining what that means for you. Do you have a bubble? Are you doing virtual learning with friends? Are you just toughing it out? Like, just defining it for yourself. I also have emotional, like, how are you feeling with everything? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling frustrated? How can you turn that into a positive mindset? Spiritual, which like I'm not religious, but I think of spiritual as being way more encompassing than that. So for whatever it means for you, factoring that in. Think about the organization. How do you want to keep all your stuff organized? Like, what are the laws? What's important to you? Do you want to keep samples of their work? Or are you like, I don't want that clutter. I only want what I need to have. It really just depends on your state and what you want it to be. Some states you have to keep a fancy portfolio, and others don't even care whether you're teaching them or not. Physical, like, what are you going to do for physical activity? Do your kids like to just play outside and run around? Do you need to try and get them involved in some like dance or karate to try and keep them moving? Are you a physical family? Oh, my dog just ran by. Hope they're out there for someone. Sorry.
Your dog
My
speaking
dog just ran by right when I said that. I hope they're all out there. But, you know, just think about these things that are like really important in life and in education and in building a healthy person, and think about how you're going to incorporate that into your homeschool. In undergrad, I had a professor who has a graphic of a guitar, and he has each 6 strings is labeled like emotional, spiritual, occupational, whatever. And he has the analogy of like your guitar is only in tune if all 6 of your strings are in tune, and your melody is only going to come out beautiful if all of your strings are in tune. And if you can identify where your problem is, and you can identify which string to tune. And so our guitars are not always going to be beautiful sounding, but there are moments when it all comes together. They are, and those are like your homeschool glory days, and they propel you through all of the hard times. And so I just think it's like, you know, good or something to think about, all these individual little aspects, but not to overwhelm anyone, just, you know, in time to think about it.
Well, and that's really great. So that's to inform your why, like, and all the things you want to play into this whole journey, so in the article, he would say, this is not what you would do during the time you're deschooling, because that's really, but it can be if that's appropriate for your family. But is that like, you don't have to create all that right now. Really just relax into it. But that is your why, right? That does inform and what you want it to look like, and what you want it to feel like, and what you want your system to be doing.
Well, one thing like is I don't feel like you have to really like write it all out and write out a policy. Just ponder it, you know, just think about it, like let it tumble around. And when you're on a walk with your family, you can be like, oh, we love these walks every evening. We're going to work this in to be part of our thing, you know, like that's how but I didn't read the article. And I think deschooling is one of those things where it's like very flexible on how people approach it, like everything in homeschooling, right? Like everyone has these words like unschooling and deschooling and everything, and they all have somewhat individual meanings. Like for the most part, they're the same, but no 2 unschoolers look the same.
Right.
Have the exact same definition, kind of.
Totally. And I can post, we can post more stuff into the group as well, so that you as an individual can look at different things and decide. Like Jenna said, it looks different for everyone, and everyone has an opinion on everything. And so you could find it 50 different ways, and you just have to go with the way that feels good for yourself and for your family. We're just here to support you in that way and give you some resources so that to help you decide what's best for your family. So I'm going to lower Ashley's hand, and I think I can unmute you. Ashley has a question. Maybe I can unmute you. There you go.
Yeah, she kind of just answered it, but I was wondering the terms unschooling and deschooling, just kind of if they're the same, or
everybody's like no.
no. Okay.
They're not.
So I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about that. And then I'm also wondering if anyone is working full-time and unschooling or deschooling, and I'm just trying to like visually, like just logistically understand how it all works, because I kind of have been doing that since March, and I am triggered a lot because I'm stressed out a lot. And so this whole, when I listen to people talk, it just sounds so beautiful, but that's not what's really going on in my home, you know, like, but I am intrigued. So I'm kind of in this middle space. So we're kind of,
So we are going to talk about that, and maybe actually next week
Yeah, I think that was on the, oh, right, because we were going to do a poll, but maybe we could just go ahead and.
Yeah, so a lot of families right now are like, how can I work and home educate my kids right now? And so for me, I work. Mine is a little bit different than most. I get to choose my hours, and I get to choose when I'm working and what I'm doing. I understand a lot of people do not. I know Jean doesn't. I know Ashley, you don't. Kimberly has a little bit more structure as well. So that's a little bit different for me. I mean, yes, there's certain times that I need to be on the computer, and even doing this right now. So we move our schedule around. It's a fluid thing. It's not this sit down and do something. We, when I did sit down with my daughter that first grade year, we got through ridiculous amount of curriculum in such a short period of time. When you are, if that's your priority, is to go through curriculum, the amount of schooling that's actually going on is a fraction of what happens at school. So again, and we'll go into this more when we do the talk on this, but just know, Ashley, that it is possible. And I think diving into your why is going to also help you be less frustrated and be less triggered as well. Also, so the difference between deschooling and unschooling, deschooling is a short period of time. It could be a long period of time. Like Kimberly mentioned, it's usually at least a month per year that your kids school. And then, but if you go, like, how many years were we in school? Do I need to de-school myself for a month every year that as I was in public school? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it totally depends on, again, what your why is and what you're going for with your children. So unschooling is a method of educating your children. Deschooling is a period of time so that you can educate your kids in a better, more flexible, more grounded way, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Can I say something? I think it is clarifying in my head. So deschooling is a period of time where you're shedding the ideas of what the system is. Where you're saying, okay, this is what I was taught it was supposed to look like, and so I'm going to take this time to shed that idea of it, and that idea of it, and that idea of it, so that way I can pick up what I want it to be for my family. Does that register for you, land for you? Okay, and so Nicci was, sorry, I totally interrupted, but I was having this visual of, it's like letting the onion layers kind of fall away so you can get to the core of what you want education to be. Where unschooling, sorry to interrupt, you want that back, Nicci, about unschooling? Unschooling being a method, and this is controversial in some circles, but, and I am not a full unschooler, so I might not speak to this the way some people would prefer, but is when there is 100% child-led learning. So
Yes.
you're not doing any book curriculum unless your child wants to do that.
Right.
But there is no outside stimulus from the parent to say, this is what we're doing.
Right.
And some unschoolers don't even like the word school in it. They don't want to be associated with homeschoolers at all because it's something so very different. And then you have a middle ground, which some people still say they're unschoolers, but they do parent-led a few things. But then you have some people saying, well, that's not what unschooling is. So it's kind of finding that place for you and understanding that term can be quite controversial. And then, so if there are some parent-led things in my house, I do say there are these things that we are going to do. So I'm not a full unschooler, and I'm more sort of eclectic, and I kind of find my own thing. Does that help the differences between unschooling and deschooling?
Yeah.
Okay.
I listened to a woman speak who's wrote a book, Radical Unschooling,
Okay.
recently. Yeah, and it was very much that. It was completely led by the child, all of her children. And so that does, so I, deschooling, unschooling, I thought, well, but no, I understand that now.
Yeah.
And then what if you're kind of like up against your kids, like your kids don't want to homeschool. They really love school. They like going to school. It's you who's kind of having this shift or this awakening. I don't know if anyone else is in that situation, but that's another one of my.
Well, there are, last week we had someone on the call who's, they're going through their school having all the changes for next year, and they're going to pull online, and she really spoke into my kids go to this charter Montessori school, and they really love it,
Yeah.
And they're not, making the choice to jump up and down and say, let's do this homeschool, because they like their program a lot. And so I totally get and hold space that it's a different kind of decision this year for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
There is some grieving to do, and that's okay to say, I really like what I was doing, and to grieve that and know that, for right now, we're going to do something different, and then maybe you look at going, well, maybe we'll go back into that, when the world's in a different place. Right. And if that's your situation, is that maybe where you're at a little bit? Is it maybe you're going to homeschool for a while and then go back into it?
I think so. I mean, if they really enjoy it, they do go to an amazing school. They love it and they miss their school.
Yeah.
But it's me that's kind of on this journey, and I don't know. So I'm trying to, but yeah, so I want to consider what they want too. I don't want it to just be my decision because this is where I'm at in my life, Yeah. But it's so hard. I mean, with all these changes that are going to happen, I just can't imagine sending them to school with masks and gloves and all their favorite parts of school, which are the socialization parts, are going to kind of be gone or very different.
So it's also okay to say, as the parent, especially this year, at any time, but it's totally okay to say, as the parent, to say, to validate those feelings. Yes, I know you enjoy that. These are the things that make this year different. So as the parent with other things, this is the decision I'm making. We are going to be home right now. And then to look into the things that they really enjoyed. And so this is that designing that part with them. These are the things you really enjoyed. What of that can we bring into our home education? I know this year is different, and this is why it's different for me. And design that piece with them. What do you need from me? What can I give to you? And how are we going to make it feel, look, and what do you want to do going forward? And then to keep talking into that and keep creating it and keep designing it. And maybe you do that each day for a while, and maybe you do that each week, This time is like no other in history.
Yeah.
So if you were to choose homeschooling a completely different year, it would be a different way. It'd be a different approach with different feelings. But this is heightened unlike anything else, right? And so it's a continual designing and talking and redesigning and retalking.
Yeah.
But you get to say, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm comfortable with. I know that's important to you, but this year we're going to be home. How can we make that the most wonderful and joyful decision for now? And keep digging into your why.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kimberly.
Well, and I was just going to say that, and this is why it's important to go deep with that why. If it's let's let that school situation inform our why, but go deeper. What's that deeper point? You said it's kind of already calling to you. What is that underneath point? That connection, that thing that's the twinkling part in your eye, that's kind of saying, well, I kind of, maybe I wanted to, or maybe it sounds dreamy, and that this school situation gives us the permission to say, well, I kind of wanted to, and I kind of like it. So bring that up and connect with that. because it's giving us this is giving us all a lot of permission to do things that maybe we wouldn't have allowed ourselves to do before, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah,
giving new ideas too. Like I struggled with science for the last couple of years because it always feels like there's so many pieces to science curriculums, but I also find it really important. And I feel like I just dropped the ball on that one. And so I was trying to think of how we were going to do more virtual activities because our co-op and everything we're not doing it this year. And so I was like, I'm going to try using Google Classroom, and Erin and I are going to do it together, and we're going to use Google Classroom. We're going to try and I have loaded up, or I am loading up the different modules on there, and we're going to try and do it like weekly together, and then have a little site where we post what we're doing and how we're thinking about it. And so Erin's in Portland, Oregon, and I'm in North Carolina. We literally cannot be farther away from each other, but yet we're still gonna like virtually do science together and help us be successful and keep accountable. And I'm really looking forward to it. And it kind of unlocked 2 doors with 1 key, which is what we say, because my daughter was horrified to hear the expression kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
I love that. Well, thanks for speaking that into the space. Unlock 2 doors with 1 key.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So, but it's just kind of like one of those things where when you're up against a wall and you're like, this isn't what I wanted it to be like, that's kind of when that creativity can come in, and you can be like, well, all right, this is what I've got. What can I do with it? Where can I explore? What can I connect it to? And I probably would not have thought of like virtual learning, or I don't know, I was going to do it by myself, try and do the Google Classroom by myself. But then I was like, wait, we need some communication. And so then I just added that component, and now it feels so much better because of the accountability and everything. And the partner aspect, you don't feel like you're alone when you have, but like you still have the flexibility to do it your way and everything. So anyways.
Well, and I wanted to speak into what Ashley was saying, because I totally was there. Because Jenna has been homeschooling a lot longer than me, and I'm an OT, and I was working full time, and my son was struggling in school but still loved it. And I flirted with it over the summer. Jenna teased me, it was like my soft homeschooling. Like I used summer as my like explore what homeschooling could be for me, because I didn't want to pull the trigger. And my kids really kind of resisted at first. And Jenna encouraged me to really dive deep and think about like, what did they get out of that school? What is it that they're wanting? And a lot of it was that social community. And so she was encouraging me, like, build your own social community with other homeschoolers. Like when you create that, then that missing piece is gone because you have this new community. And she was so right, because you know, we're in our first year, and already now my kids are like, they would never want to go back, you know, like they're really pleased with what we do. And we talk and speak into it a lot. Like, you couldn't do this if you were at school. Like, isn't that great? Like, mom gets to play with you, or mom gets to take you here, and look at how, you know, available the zoo is right now. Everyone's in school. Or gosh, we only did school for 2 hours today. Wasn't that great? Like, there's these really neat opportunities where you can talk about how special this time is that you can have with each other, and how you can create a really unique social experience where you're living true life, like with other people, and having real social experiences, and not sort of forced social experiences with such like intense structure, but natural ones where you have them picked up at the playground or picked up in your neighborhood. And you build a really cool community with moms, because you have to build a village. And it's really hard to build a village when everyone's gone for 8 hours a day. So I'm just going to say, like, I totally get where you're at. And I felt that precipice quite thoroughly.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Well, that was great. Thank you guys for all helping and sharing. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I get this year also might be hard to feel like, how do I create social circles right now? And how do I create community right now? Because of, where we are in the world. So if you're still inside and sheltered, when things kind of revive and go back, we're a very social group. All over the world, homeschoolers are very social. I know homeschoolers who say, oh gosh, I could never sit down and do workbooks. We're gone too much. We're at too many play dates. And Jean's like, yep. Yeah, that's what I just want, I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if you're still home now, which a lot of us still are, that homeschooling doesn't have to stay that way once, we're back with people.
Or if you build a bubble, of like 1 or 2 homeschooling families, some people are doing, then you've got it in that too.
Yeah.
Well, and I might look into what your community has to offer just for the future. I live in Portland. We have an amazing community, and we have an experience that I feel really fortunate where we can create as much of a school-like experience as we want, but still being homeschooled. So my kids go to a co-op school usually, and it's kind of like community college for little kids, and it's actual certified teachers, but parents get to be present, siblings can come in, and it's all about loving learning and enjoying the topic and diving in and being passionate. There's no homework, there's no tests, but kids all the way from preschool up to high school and beyond are experiencing the classes they want to participate in, the things they want to do. So my kids get to pick, if they just want to do the art class, or if they want to do gardening, or if they want to do theater or whatever, we do that, and then we supplement out at home, and that gives us a cool kind of anchoring piece. So we feel really fortunate that exists, and I think it exists in a lot more places than people realize. And it helps create community, and it helps give you those things as a person who's been schooled in public school that you miss, like that you don't always want to teach everything. And sometimes it's nice to have that experience or that opportunity. So I would definitely encourage you to look in your community, because I'm positive that there's something out there where you could share the load a little bit.
Thank you. I just joined a co-op here where I live. There's not a lot going on down here. I think if I were in Denver or Boulder, I don't know, a lot of other but there's a little bit. But yeah, I joined, and I'm excited. We're actually doing Nerf gun. Like, my boys are going to a co-op where they're doing like a Nerf gun thing out in the woods with a lot of other families. And
so then when you come home or before you go, see if you can find a YouTube video that talks about like trajectory or
right,
I don't know, anything, strategy or something, and then tie that in just a little bit. And then even if you aren't talking about like the mathematical calculations of how fast a ball can travel a certain distance, just by kind of watching a little video or reading a little book about it or something, then it kind of, it kind of gives them something to think about. Oh, hey, there's a word that is used for how fast this ball is flying through the air or something. And then you can tie like anything you love into some type of learning experience. And then even if they don't totally understand the whole concept right now, it's still vocabulary that they're going to have. And when they reach it again, it'll be a little bit more familiar. And that competence is 1/3 of motivation, my favorite theory. So it's good to just, talk about it. All your favorite things. There's something like educational about everything,
Yeah, my background is education. I guess I didn't say that, but my background is education, and I used to own a school in the Dominican Republic, an early childhood school. So I'm teacher mom over here, like we're constantly learning. So I really need to work on not being so structured. I thrive on structure for myself, so then I try to give that to my children. Because I think that that's what they need too, right? But yeah, I think that those things are great. And I just love this idea of things being more flowy. When I'm home with the kids by myself, I tend to set it up like I would a classroom, like I would school, like I would plan out a day. And so that's the learning curve for me. And that's like the awakening part that I'm going through of just like, what is that actually doing for us? And anyways, I'm rambling on, but it's just a full circle. It's like, yeah, we're just going through, so like I used to be my son's teacher, like in a school, to now, like, you know, we're just making our way on this journey.
It's kind of like the difference between a schedule and a routine is what a lot of homeschoolers talk about it. And one thing, like, we need a lot of structure too, because I have ADHD and my daughter does too, and like it all turns to chaos very quickly. But I just created this, so like, and when I show you, don't think like, I don't know, don't hate too much because I'm still working it out in my mind. But like for screen time, for an example, I don't know if you can see this, but I made this little pyramid. And so like for the bottom, I say if it's lessons or curriculum, you can have as much as you want. I don't care. Do it for 8 hours if you want. Documentaries and online books for like my little guy who can't read yet. I mean, I'm probably not going to say all day, but you know what? If you're having a mellow day and you need screen time, I don't cap that too much. And then educational games and TV shows like Magic School Bus and things like that, I limit it a little bit more, but I don't really care if you want to watch Magic School Bus and Wild Kratts and things sometimes. And then like generic entertainment, like, I don't know, Fuller House or just like sitcoms, you know? And then personally, I have the trash at the top. And I know this is very different for every family, but to me, I consider that like watching somebody else play video games or open a present or something like that. Like that's trash. And so for my kids, because we do more of a routine and less structure, what I did is, can you tell I went to grad school? I don't know all these models. Behavior is the most important part of our day. Like, I'm not down with throwing fits when you don't get your way. And then lessons or whatever we're doing for that. And then having some reading time, doing your chores, play a little bit. And if you get all this stuff done, then you know what? Have a free hour and watch that trash TV if you want for a minute. Like you earned it. You did everything. And so I guess I just show you this because this is kind of how I made it so that my kids understand the boundaries and the parameters that I have, and then they are able to walk through them on their own, you know, because when you're home all day, like you don't have the order and structure of the school saying, be here at this time, line up, get your coat, bells ringing. It's so much more free flowing, and you don't have to micromanage them, in my opinion, quite as much when you're home all the time and when you get into a routine of things. So like, this is what I did just to try and curb my kids being like, can I watch Gamer Girl? Can I watch? No, you woke up 10 minutes ago. You're not watching Gamer Girl. Like, Gamer Girl. Oh, I get so tired of hearing that because I don't find much worth in it, my own personal self, but it's important to them. So I want to make it accessible to them without like giving them ice cream for breakfast, you know? So now I'm rambling, but
I'm just so happy you touched on technology because I feel like that is too just this huge battle, and being home all day that frustrates me, that triggers me, that just makes me so unhappy. Yeah. I'm constantly battling technology. Constantly. When they're not here, I don't have to deal with that. Like, we don't have that problem. But when you're all
tech
home,
is great, right? Like my daughter's math curriculum is screen time. So how am I going to be like, no screen time, go do math, right? It is screen time. So I just really differentiated among what I consider like good or acceptable and broke it down like that just for my own, I don't know, I found it easier. And some of our curriculums, like the history curriculum we do, they have an activity where you can go on Minecraft and like build someone's castle or build the moat or whatever you're learning about in history. So I want them to be able to have those opportunities, but I also don't want them to think like you can just watch TV all day or TED Ed all day. Like even the good ones have a little bit of cap, you know?
Yeah. So you get a, that's the cool thing, right? Is you get to decide, right? I mean, I like technology too. I like TV shows sometimes and I binge watch, right? But my kids like games too. So it's like, okay, well, if you want to be on one and if I have to work, and so I'm going to use screen time to entertain you while I work, how can I make the screen time work for me? Okay, let's put you on that math curriculum that is involved with games so that you're still getting math, but you're having fun, you know, or finding the documentary or, you know, that sort of thing. Like, how can I, the whole two doors, one key thing, they get that. And then I have either my quiet time, my me time, or my work time.
Well, and so I'm more of a structured person like you. Maybe that's just like my background in OT. So I do things totally different. So I have this is our summer schedule. They have to do reading and math, and then they have to be color, play outside, make something creative, read for 20 minutes, and then they can do screen time. And this is my way of saying, you be free when you feel like you're through this list, then you can go do screen time. And they know ahead of time. And then if they're struggling to be alone, then I create stations, and I have like a magnetile station or a Lego station or something else. And it's like, spend some time like doing something. I need this amount of time. We use a visual timer, you know, like you can create those spaces to give yourself that time to try to push out the screen time. And I'm always very open. Like if you want to be on a screen, like Math Seeds is right here. Like go to town, or, you know, like we have our own box on our iPad that's like anything in this box is fair game on the tablet any part of the day because it's learning and I feel really comfortable. Anything outside of that box doesn't happen until we get through our family list, basically. And that shifts and changes all the time. I don't usually use this list, but this is my COVID survival strategy because we're not leaving the house. And so this helps us get through the day because we live in the suburbs, unlike Jenna, and it's hard to get around and not be around people. So we're trying to make sure that we have something in our home that kind of keeps pushing us through the day. And then on the rest of the week, I have it laminated so I can change this. And this can be anything on our curriculum, or it can be whatever the heck I want it to be. And then they have to just do a couple of things. And this helps just sort of build in that independence for learning. And that's what works for us. So it totally looks different for everybody. Some people do loop schedules where it's like, these are the things we want to conquer today to get through the loop. And maybe they don't finish it, but then they don't feel behind. They just start where they finished and they keep going. So like everyone has a different strategy. It's you finding what works for you guys, especially during COVID, because I feel like we shifted more to school at home than I normally ever would for my normal style because I'm trapped at home. Because normally we're out and living life and learning and much more creative and fun. And you can only make, you know, GAC so many times and like bubbles so many times. Like there's only so many things you can do in your home when you're stuck in the suburbs and you can't play anywhere else with anyone else. So that's my survival strategy.
You have sidewalk chalk and you can make your great, awesome sidewalk chalk decorations. I don't even have a sidewalk or a road. I have gravel.
That's
But
nice.
like one thing Erin just touched upon that I wanted to mention is when you have systems like these, it really gives your kids so much more accountability. You know, you can be like, well, you know what you have to do to be able to get this. Go show me you want it. And I mean, they either will or they'll go in there to clean that playroom, and 2 hours later you come in and maybe it's a little bit messier than it was, but hey, they've been quiet and playing miraculously for 2 hours with something that you forgot you even had, and then it's cool, you know, still happy.
And that's another thing coming from public school that kids have to de-school is they're entertained all day and shifted from thing to thing and with people, and learning to play by yourself is like such a learning curve. So I just started homeschooling my nephew, only child, always been in daycare, always been in public school. And I was telling Jenna, like, I'm so frustrated. Like, he has no idea how to play by himself. It is like infuriating because as a homeschool mom, you're home with them all day. Like, you need just a little bit of time. And so I am having to really work on like building in that self-independence and saying like, I'm not going to tell you what to do every minute of the day. You have to work on this skill. So that's another growing pain that might be happening too, is just figuring that out, like changing that dynamic. And I would say it took us 6 months. So, which Jenna warned me. So I'm just saying, like, it takes time. It takes about 6 months to transition to anything. It took us, it's been 5 months of COVID now. Like, we're just now in like a really good routine with our COVID homeschool strategy.
Yeah.
So,
And it'll change again when COVID stuff is shifted, or your kids get to a new age bracket or a new learning development or a new, it's always just like, right, anything with life, it's going to also shift again, right? And then we go, okay, what's this growing pain? What's this space?
How do we fix it? When COVID happened, oh my gosh, my daughter went from being like, normally she's so happy-go-lucky, and she was having the most gnarly fits, like every couple of days. Like, I was like, I think she got ODD like last week. And I'm calling Erin here and I'm like, can kids just get this like overnight? What happened to my kid? And I think it would just went from us having so much like going out and doing so many things. And then all of a sudden we were just home all the time. And it felt like lessons all the time. Hang on 1 second. Go ask Daddy if you can have candy. Well, then why are you asking me if he said you could have one right now? Can you hear him? Can you hear this? Then go ask Daddy. Get a chair. Go ask Daddy for help. I forgot what the candy.
Get a chair to go get the candy. Why don't we let Jenna go help with that? And oh my gosh, thank you everyone for showing up, and little Jakey for
breaking it up. My husband turns 50 today, and his sisters sent him a box of retro candy, and it's all this candy from like the 1970s.
Oh wow.
And it was so cool because I don't know, even I was like, oh my gosh, look, Fun Dip Now and Laters, and I was all excited. I know all this awesome. I had a candy cigarette. I was like, look at me. Because that's what I did when I was like 9, right? My mom smoked cigarettes. I thought it was so cool. Mm-hmm. And now I'm just like, can you believe? Like, my kids were like, oh my gosh, cigarettes are bad. And I was like, good. But now they're like, we want the candy box.
Yes.
Because we got this big box of candy.
I appreciate all your time today, Jenna, for showing up and speaking all your wisdom into the group. And hi, I see another little kid behind Erin back there. Thanks for all of our little ones.
That little guy is viral. He's viral. You have seen him before. Have you ever seen like the breastfeeding moms always share it, but the dad who's like, ah, and holding the kid who's like, ah, and they're always like, Daddy doesn't have a boobie or something. Have you seen that viral image?
I've seen a few like that. Yeah. Is he one of these?
One of them is that little guy right there, and his dad, and it's so cute. And it comes around like every so often, and I'm like, you're still going.
Nice. Love it. Well, we are going to post this, and we're going to be here again next week. And I do believe our topic is going to be homeschooling and also working from home. That looks different for all of us, but we'll just talk about those feelings and speak into that. And Ashley, I really thank you for speaking into your feelings about that. And we'll go into that some more next week. If you have questions, join us in the group. It's Home Education by Design. If you're not in there, you can search for us there and we'll get you added.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Have an awesome day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.